Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sunlight streaming through your window, the world outside buzzing with life. You sit up, stretch, and feel a strange unease settle in your chest. It's not the kind of fear that screams. It's quieter, subtler, like a shadow lingering just out of sight. You brush it off, telling yourself it's nothing. But as you go about your day, it follows you. It's there when you hesitate to speak up in a meeting, when you avoid that difficult conversation, when you choose the safer path instead of the one that sets your soul on fire. It's there when you scroll endlessly through your phone, numbing yourself to the gnawing sense that something is missing. It's there, always there, shaping your choices, your life, your very identity. Now imagine this. What if that shadow isn't just a fleeting feeling? What if it's the invisible hand that guides every decision you make? What if fear, not the kind that makes your heart race, but the kind that whispers in the back of your mind, is the true architect of your life? And what if, until now, you've been completely unaware of its power? Here's the paradox. Fear is one of the most primal, universal human experiences, yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. We think of fear as the enemy, something to be conquered, silenced, or ignored. We tell ourselves to face our fears, to be brave, to push through. But what if fear isn't the enemy? What if it's something far more insidious, a master manipulator, a puppeteer pulling the strings of your mind, shaping your reality without you even realizing it? Consider this. Every decision you've ever made, from the mundane to the life-altering, has been influenced by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of uncertainty, fear of pain, fear of being seen, or worse, being truly known. Even the decisions that seem courageous, the ones where you face your fears, are often just reactions to fear in disguise. You take the job you don't want because you're afraid of financial instability. You stay in the relationship that drains you because you're afraid of being alone. You silence your dreams because you're afraid of what others might think. Fear isn't just the obstacle, it's the lens through which you see the world. But here's the question that haunts. If fear is so powerful, so pervasive, why do we rarely see it for what it is? Why do we let it control us, shape us, define us, without ever questioning its authority? Why do we live in a world where fear is the default, the norm, the invisible force that dictates our lives? The answer lies in the nature of fear itself. Fear is not just an emotion. It's a survival mechanism hardwired into our brains over millions of years of evolution. It's the voice that whispers, "Be careful, stay safe, don't take risks." And for most of human history, that voice kept us alive. But in the modern world, where physical survival is no longer the primary concern, fear has taken on a new role. It's no longer just a protector, it's a prison guard, keeping us trapped in lives of quiet desperation, too afraid to step into the unknown, too afraid to truly live. And yet, here's the twist. Fear is not the problem. The problem is that we've given it too much power. We've let it become the silent dictator of our lives, the unseen force that shapes our decisions, our relationships, our identities. We've let it convince us that safety is more important than freedom, that comfort is more valuable than growth, that the known is always better than the unknown. But what if there's another way? What if, instead of running from fear, we could learn to see it for what it truly is? What if we could strip away its power, not by conquering it, but by understanding it? What if the key to breaking free lies not in fighting fear, but in unraveling its grip on our minds? This is not just a question, it's an invitation. An invitation to step into the shadows, to confront the hidden force that has been shaping your life. To see fear not as the enemy, but as the mirror that reflects your deepest insecurities, your unspoken desires, your untapped potential. This is the journey we're about to embark on, a journey into the heart of fear, into the labyrinth of the human psyche, into the very essence of what it means to be alive. but be warned. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It will ask you to question everything you thought you knew about yourself, about fear, about the world. It will challenge you to confront the parts of yourself you've been running from, to face the shadows you've been avoiding, to step into the unknown with nothing but your own courage to guide you. Are you ready? Because the first step is the hardest, to see fear for what it truly is. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. To understand how fear controls your decisions, you must first understand its origins, not just in your personal history, but in the very fabric of human existence. Fear is not merely an emotion, it is a force that has shaped the course of evolution, the development of societies, and the structure of the human mind. It is as old as life itself, a survival mechanism etched into the deepest layers of your brain. But somewhere along the way, this primal instinct became something more, a tyrant, a manipulator, a shadow that looms over every choice you make. Let's start with the brain. Deep within your skull lies the amygdala, an almond-shaped cluster of neurons that acts as the brain's alarm system. When you perceive a threat, whether it's a predator in the wild or a critical comment from a coworker, the amygdala triggers a cascade of physiological responses. Your heart races, your muscles tense, your breath quickens. This is the fight-or-flight response, a survival mechanism that has kept humans alive for millions of years. But here's the catch. Your brain doesn't distinguish between physical threats and psychological ones. A looming deadline, a difficult conversation, the fear of failure. All of these can trigger the same primal response, flooding your body with stress hormones and clouding your judgment. This is where fear begins to take control. When your brain is in survival mode, it prioritizes short-term safety over long-term growth. It pushes you to avoid risks, to seek comfort, to stay within the boundaries of what is familiar. And in the modern world, where physical threats are rare but psychological ones are constant, this survival mechanism becomes a trap. You become a prisoner of your own mind, too afraid to step outside the narrow confines of your comfort zone. But fear's power doesn't stop at the level of the brain. It is also deeply rooted in your psyche, in the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what you're capable of. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, called this the shadow, the part of yourself that you repress, deny, or hide from the world. The shadow is not inherently evil. It is simply the part of you that you're afraid to confront. It's your insecurities, your vulnerabilities, your deepest fears, and the more you try to ignore it, the more power it has over you. Jung believed that true self-awareness comes from integrating the shadow, from bringing it into the light and accepting it as part of yourself. But this is no easy task. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of yourself that you've been running from. And most people never do. Instead, they live their lives in a state of quiet denial, letting their fears dictate their choices without ever understanding why. Philosophers, too, have grappled with the nature of fear. Friedrich Nietzsche saw fear as the driving force behind morality, the foundation of society's rules and norms. He believed that much of human behavior is motivated by the desire to avoid pain, to seek comfort, to conform to the expectations of others. In his view, fear is the enemy of creativity, of individuality, of true freedom. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe, he wrote. If you try it, you will be lonely often, and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. Arthur Schopenhauer took a darker view. He saw fear as an inevitable part of the human condition, a reflection of the inherent suffering of existence. In his philosophy, fear is not just a reaction to external threats. It is a fundamental aspect of life itself. Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom, he wrote. And fear, in his view, is the thread that ties these two extremes together. It is the anticipation of pain, the dread of the unknown, the constant undercurrent of anxiety that accompanies every human experience. But perhaps the most profound insight into fear comes from Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. Frankl observed that even in the most extreme circumstances, in the concentration camps, where fear and suffering were constant, people could still choose how to respond. "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing," he wrote, "the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." In other words, fear may be inevitable, but it does not have to control you. You always have a choice to let fear dictate your actions or to rise above it. And yet, despite these profound insights, fear continues to dominate our lives. Why? Because fear is not just a psychological or philosophical phenomenon. It is also a cultural one. Modern society is built on fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. From a young age, we are taught to avoid risks, to follow the rules, to seek approval from others. We are conditioned to believe that safety is more important than freedom, that conformity is more valuable than individuality. And in this culture of fear, it's no wonder that so many of us feel trapped, powerless, unable to break free from the invisible chains that bind us. But here's the truth. Fear is not your enemy. It is not something to be conquered or eliminated. It is a part of you, a reflection of your deepest desires, your unspoken dreams, your untapped potential. The problem is not fear itself, but the power you've given it. The power to control your decisions, to shape your reality, to keep you trapped in a life that is less than what you deserve. So the question is not how to eliminate fear, but how to understand it, how to see it for what it truly is, a survival mechanism, a shadow, a cultural construct, and to reclaim the power it has taken from you. This is the journey we're on, a journey into the heart of fear, into the labyrinth of the human psyche, into the very essence of what it means to be alive. And the next step is to see the consequences, not just for you, but for the world around you. Because fear doesn't just shape individual lives, it shapes societies, cultures, entire civilizations. It is the invisible force that drives wars, fuels inequality, and perpetuates injustice. And until we confront it, until we understand it, until we break free from its grip, we will never truly be free. But first, we must see the unseen. We must uncover the hidden ways in which fear controls not just our decisions, but our very perception of reality. This is where the journey takes us next, into the labyrinth of the mind, into the shadows of the soul, into the heart of the human condition. Are you ready to take the next step? Fear is not just a personal struggle, it is a collective one. Its tendrils reach far beyond the individual, weaving themselves into the fabric of society, shaping cultures, systems, and even the way we perceive reality. The consequences of fear are everywhere, yet they remain largely invisible, hidden beneath the surface of our daily lives. To see them, you must look closely, not just at the choices you make, but at the world those choices create. Consider this. Every time you avoid a risk, every time you choose safety over growth, every time you silence your voice to avoid conflict, you are not just shaping your own life, you are contributing to a culture of fear. A culture where conformity is rewarded and individuality is punished. A culture where the status quo is preserved at all costs, even when it harms the very people it claims to protect. This is the paradox of fear. It masquerades as a protector, but in reality, it is a destroyer. It destroys potential, creativity, and freedom, not just in individuals, but in entire societies. Take, for example, the way fear shapes our relationships. How often do you hold back from expressing your true feelings, afraid of rejection or conflict? How often do you stay in relationships that no longer serve you, afraid of being alone? These may seem like small personal choices, but they have far-reaching consequences. When we let fear dictate our relationships, we create a world where authenticity is rare, where connection is superficial, and where love is conditional. We create a world where people are afraid to be themselves, afraid to be vulnerable, afraid to truly connect. Or consider the way fear shapes our work. How often do you stay in a job that drains you, afraid of financial instability or failure? How often do you silence your ideas, afraid of criticism or rejection? These choices may seem pragmatic, but they come at a cost. When we let fear dictate our careers, we create a world where passion is sacrificed for security, where innovation is stifled by conformity, and where people spend their lives doing work that doesn't fulfill them. We create a world where potential is wasted, where creativity is suppressed, and where the human spirit is diminished. And then there's the way fear shapes our politics, our economies, our very systems of governance. Fear is the driving force behind authoritarianism, behind inequality, behind the endless cycles of violence and oppression that plague our world. It is the tool used by those in power to maintain control, to divide and conquer, to keep people too afraid to challenge the status quo. Fear is what allows injustice to persist, what keeps people silent in the face of wrongdoing, what prevents us from creating a better world. But perhaps the most insidious consequence of fear is the way it distorts our perception of reality. Fear doesn't just influence our decisions, it shapes the way we see the world. It creates a filter, a lens through which we interpret everything around us. When you are afraid, the world seems more dangerous, more hostile, more threatening than it really is. You see threats where there are none, risks where there are opportunities, enemies where there are allies. This is the power of fear. It doesn't just control your actions, it controls your mind. Cognitive biases are a perfect example of this. Take the negativity bias, for instance. The tendency to focus on negative experiences more than positive ones. This bias is rooted in fear, in the brain's survival mechanism that prioritizes threats over rewards. But in the modern world, where physical threats are rare, this bias becomes a trap. It leads us to overestimate risks, to dwell on failures, to see the world as a more dangerous place than it really is. And this distorted perception, in turn, shapes our decisions, our relationships, our lives. Or consider the confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore information that challenges them. This bias is also rooted in fear, in the desire to avoid uncertainty, to cling to what is familiar. But it creates a feedback loop, a self-reinforcing cycle that keeps us trapped in our own echo chambers, unable to see the world as it truly is. And this, too, shapes our decisions, our relationships, our lives. The consequences of fear are not just personal, they are systemic. They shape the way we live, the way we work, the way we relate to one another. They shape the world we create, the societies we build, the future we pass on to the next generation. And until we confront these consequences, until we see the ways in which fear controls not just our individual lives, but our collective reality, we will never truly be free. But here's the twist. Fear is not the enemy. The enemy is the power we've given it. The power to control our decisions, to shape our reality, to keep us trapped in a world that is less than what it could be. The power to make us forget that we are more than our fears, that we are capable of more than we imagine, that we have the power to create a different world. This is the realization that changes everything. The realization that fear is not something to be conquered, but something to be understood. The realization that the key to breaking free lies not in fighting fear, but in seeing it for what it truly is, a survival mechanism, a shadow, a cultural construct. And the realization that once you see it, once you understand it, you can begin to reclaim the power it has taken from you. But this is not the end of the journey. It is only the beginning. Because once you see the unseen, Once you understand the consequences of fear, you are faced with a choice: to continue living in fear or to break free, to continue contributing to a culture of fear or to create a different world, to continue letting fear control your decisions or to take back control. This is the choice that defines us. This is the choice that shapes our lives, our relationships, our world. And this is the choice we must make if we are to truly be free. But how? How do we break free from the grip of fear? How do we reclaim the power it has taken from us? This is the question we turn to next. The question of rebellion, of revolution, of reclaiming our lives from the shadows of fear. Are you ready to take the next step? Breaking free from fear is not a single act. It is a revolution. It is a radical shift in perspective, a refusal to accept the narratives that have been imposed upon you, a reclaiming of your power to choose. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to step into the unknown. But it is possible. And it begins with a single, profound realization. Fear does not control you unless you let it. The first step in this rebellion is to see fear for what it truly is: a survival mechanism, a shadow, a cultural construct. It is not an inherent truth, nor is it an unchangeable part of who you are. It is a story, a narrative that has been woven into your mind over years, decades, a lifetime. And like any story, it can be rewritten. This is where the work begins. Not in fighting fear, but in understanding it. To break free from fear, you must first become intimately familiar with it. You must learn to recognize its voice, its patterns, its triggers. You must learn to see the ways in which it shapes your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions. This is not an easy task. It requires a level of self-awareness that most people never achieve. But it is essential. Because until you see fear for what it is, you will continue to be controlled by it. One powerful tool for this work is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment, without attachment, without resistance. It is the practice of becoming the watcher, the observer, the one who sees. When you practice mindfulness, you create a space between yourself and your fears. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts, not your emotions, not your fears. You are the one who observes them. And in that space, in that moment of awareness, you find freedom. But mindfulness alone is not enough. To truly break free from fear, you must also confront it. You must face the shadows you've been running from, the insecurities you've been hiding, the vulnerabilities you've been denying. This is the work of integration, of bringing the shadow into the light. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to be vulnerable. But it is essential, because until you confront your fears, they will continue to control you. Carl Jung called this process shadow work. It is the process of exploring the parts of yourself that you've repressed, denied, or hidden from the world. It is the process of acknowledging your fears, your insecurities, your vulnerabilities, and accepting them as part of yourself. This is not an easy task. It requires a level of self-compassion that most people never achieve. But it is essential, because until you accept your fears, you will continue to be controlled by them. Another powerful tool for breaking free from fear is reframing. Reframing is the practice of shifting your perspective, of seeing a situation in a new light. It is the practice of asking yourself, what if this isn't a threat? What if this is an opportunity? What if this is a chance to grow, to learn, to become more than I am? When you reframe your fears, you take away their power. You begin to see them not as obstacles, but as opportunities. And in that shift, you find freedom. But reframing alone is not enough. To truly break free from fear, you must also take action. You must step into the unknown, take risks, Face your fears head-on. This is the work of courage, of stepping outside your comfort zone, of embracing uncertainty. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable. It requires a level of bravery that most people never achieve. But it is essential, because until you take action, you will continue to be controlled by fear. One powerful way to take action is through small, incremental steps. You don't have to face your biggest fear all at once. You can start small with something that feels manageable and build from there. Each small step you take builds your confidence, your resilience, your courage. And each small step brings you closer to freedom. Another powerful way to take action is through community. You don't have to face your fears alone. You can seek out support, guidance, encouragement from others who have walked this path before you. You can find mentors, coaches, therapists, friends who can help you navigate the challenges of breaking free from fear. And in that community, you find strength. But perhaps the most powerful tool for breaking free from fear is love. Love is the antidote to fear. It is the force that dissolves fear, that transforms it, that turns it into something else entirely. When you act from love, love for yourself, love for others, love for life, you take away fear's power. You begin to see that fear is not the opposite of love, but the absence of it. And in that realization, you find freedom. This is the rebellion. To see fear for what it is, to confront it, to reframe it, to take action, to act from love. It is not a single act, but a lifelong journey. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable, but it is possible. And it begins with a single, profound realization. Fear does not control you unless you let it. But this is not the end of the journey. It is only the beginning. Because once you break free from fear, once you reclaim your power to choose, you are faced with a new challenge. To live from that freedom. To create a life that is not controlled by fear, but guided by love. To step into the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, to become more than you ever thought possible. This is the ultimate rebellion. To live a life that is truly your own. To create a world that is not shaped by fear, but by love. To be the change you wish to see in the world. And this is the journey we turn to next. The journey of living from freedom, of creating a new reality, of becoming who you truly are. Are you ready to take the next step? The ultimate truth about fear is this: it is not your enemy. It is not something to be conquered, silenced, or eliminated. It is not a flaw, a weakness, or a failure. Fear is a part of you, a part of your humanity, your evolution, your story. But it is not the whole story, and it does not have to be the author of your life. The final, most powerful realization is this: fear is not the opposite of courage. It is the birthplace of it. Fear is not the absence of love. It is the call to it. Fear is not the end of freedom. It is the beginning of it. When you see fear for what it truly is, a signal, a teacher, a guide, you transform it. You take away its power to control you, and you give yourself the power to choose. This realization is not just intellectual, it is experiential. It is not something you understand with your mind, but something you feel in your bones. It is the moment when you realize that fear is not something outside of you, but something within you. And because it is within you, you have the power to change it. You have the power to rewrite the story, to redefine the relationship, to reclaim your life. This is the ultimate truth. Fear is not the enemy. The enemy is the power you've given it. The power to control your decisions, to shape your reality, to keep you trapped in a life that is less than what you deserve. And the moment you realize this, the moment you take back that power, everything changes. But this realization is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new one. Because once you see fear for what it truly is, once you reclaim your power to choose, you are faced with a new challenge: to live from that freedom. To create a life that is not controlled by fear, but guided by love. To step into the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, to become more than you ever thought possible. This is the journey of a lifetime. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable. It requires courage, vulnerability, and a willingness to be wrong. It requires a willingness to let go of the old stories, the old identities, the old ways of being. It requires a willingness to step into the unknown, to embrace uncertainty, to trust in the process of becoming. But this is the journey that defines us. This is the journey that shapes our lives, our relationships, our world. And this is the journey we must take if we are to truly be free. So what does it mean to live from freedom? It means to live with intention, with purpose, with authenticity. It means to make choices that align with your values, your passions, your dreams. It means to take risks, to face challenges, to embrace uncertainty. It means to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be true to yourself. Living from freedom also means to live with compassion for yourself and for others. It means to recognize that everyone is fighting their own battles, facing their own fears, navigating their own journeys. It means to offer kindness, understanding, and support, even when it's difficult. It means to create a world that is not shaped by fear, but by love. And finally, living from freedom means to live with gratitude. It means to appreciate the beauty, the wonder, the mystery of life. It means to find joy in the small moments, the simple pleasures, the everyday miracles. It means to see the world not as a place of fear, but as a place of possibility. This is the ultimate truth. Fear is not the enemy. The enemy is the power you've given it. And the moment you realize this, the moment you take back that power, everything changes. You become the author of your own story. You become the creator of your own reality. You become the hero of your own journey. So, what will you choose? Will you continue to live in fear, or will you break free? Will you continue to let fear control your decisions, or will you reclaim your power to choose? Will you continue to contribute to a culture of fear, or will you create a different world? The choice is yours, and the time is now. This is the journey of a lifetime. It is not easy, nor is it comfortable, but it is worth it. Because on the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of fear is love. On the other side of fear is you, the real you, the true you, the you that you were always meant to be. So take the first step, face your fears, rewrite your story, reclaim your power, and step into the life that is waiting for you. The journey begins now. Are you ready? If this journey resonated with you, don't forget to like and share. Subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries of the mind and soul. Thanks for watching.